Welcome to the fourth episode of Mol België Season 13 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who often asks us for forgiveness when he's done something disgusting, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who still gets gifts from a strange man who comes down his chimney once a year, David Bindley.
Good morning, Papa.
I don't know if we said it this season, but are they pandering to us with that scene?
Every time you thought that, Michael, you always get a message from Jill in an email saying, "No, Michael, we are not pandering to you."
I was fully expecting to have an email off him in the last day or so just going, I know you're going to call me Papa constantly during this episode. Please don't. I've had nothing off him, so it's open season on calling Papa Bear Papa, I think, at this point.
Wonderful.
I like how the start of the episode shows Yan in the cab still cursing at being eliminated.
Yeah, we cannot forget him. We just need a scene at the start of every episode to eulogize the person we've already forgotten existed.
Yeah, or what they should do at the start of next episode, since it was 2 or 3 days elapsed. It's just him sitting in his home in Belgium, still swearing about being eliminated.
Yeah,
and that should always be like the intro scene. Maybe for episode 6, it's just him watching a soccer game, still swearing about being eliminated.
Yeah. Have you had good weeks?
I nearly got gassed at work.
Oh,
fun. I know. So we had like one wasp or something that was just hovering around. So the people in charge of all of the, the maintenance at work basically decided to stick a wasp catcher thing right in the shop, which is not great when it smells awful and there's food around. And it's especially not great when it sits there for a while and the smell just gets worse and worse and worse to try and attract everything. So it got to the point where, because the circulation in the room is so bad, that basically I had to go home early on Sunday because I could not breathe with the smell of this thing.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So, Jules has got a challenge idea for next season now.
Yeah. Tear gas. Tear gas wasp catchers. And I swear we have not discussed this, but my main anecdote this week is also to do with wasps, because I have been being harassed by wasps in the past week or so. I keep putting my washing out. I keep finding sleepy wasps. I shake off all the items, and I still keep finding wasps in the house from the fucking washing.
I think we have to call them Karens now.
Well, it gets worse, because on Sunday evening, I was putting new bedding on my bed, threw one of the pillows on my bed, and heard a faint buzzing, and went, oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Because I'd already taken my washing in that day, and that washing for the bedding was 4 days old at that point. Yeah. I'd taken in another load of washing on Sunday, and already had to shake 2 wasps or 2 separate socks. So I spent most of Sunday evening having to spray the living fuck out of my pillow and my pillowcase with loads and loads of insecticide until this bastard died, and then scrape it off on the path. Because that's what wasps deserve. They're nature's bastards.
What are you going to do when you see some wasps?
Spray the living fuck out of it.
Amazing Race 16, ladies and gentlemen.
So I genuinely do have at the top of my notes just one word: wasps! ! Have you got any wasp-related anecdotes, Saunders?
No, all I did yesterday was book all my accommodations for the Euro trip.
Oh, awesome. Have you booked separate accommodation for Antwerp this time, or are you piggybacking on mine?
Piggybacking off of yours,
okay,
Michael.
I thought you might. I may or may not have deliberately booked a room with 2 beds this time.
Well, that's an improvement.
Well, it was, because last year I booked a room with 1 bed, not knowing Saunders wanted to piggyback on it, and had to send the hotel a very nice email just going, can we swap it, please? I know it's the same price.
No, let him sleep on the floor.
And the bad news for Saunders is I'm not leaving until the evening this time, so I'm actually going to be sleeping in. No 5 o'clock wake up this year.
Oh, you're not doing your 6 a.m. flight?
No, I'm not doing the Brussels flight this year. I'm doing Amsterdam instead. So I don't think I'm flying out of Amsterdam till about 5:30, something like that. So it's going to be a very leisurely last day in Antwerp for me, hopefully.
Ooh, are you going to flip off random route markers from season 30 again?
I think I've done all the ones that are important. Rota Marks was the only one that really needed it, I think. Having said that, I could flip off quite a few route markers from season 38 at this point, because I'm going to Amsterdam first.
Are you going to Dubrovnik or Bucharest?
Not this time, no. Maybe next time. Saunders is more likely to go to those places than I am, I think, this time.
Yeah, I have like an 8-hour layover in Bucharest,
Oh.
and it's a daytime layover.
Oh,
Interesting. So, this episode.
Yeah. I didn't know where to follow up on
what
that.
more can we say from that comedy handbrake?
Yeah.
So, previously, the final 8 tried to feed elephants at a sanctuary, but it was only Jan and Pedro who ended up having a smashing time. When split between 2 cars to identify adverts, half of them heard how the Mole sabotaged the first challenge by drilling a melon in the night, like their Logan Saunders after he's been travelling for a few weeks. After a visit to an illegal gambling den, 3 of them won past Ragan, but it was Jan who was carted off, as he became the 3rd person to receive a red screen. And we begin with a Thai voiceover saying, in the month of November, the Festival of Lights is celebrated here called Loi Krathong. We gather with friends and make room for reflection, and the full moon rises, it's tradition to set the boat afloat. The further the boat drifts away and the longer the candle burns, the more luck it brings. One boat will drift further than the rest. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's destiny, but there is someone who will be luckier than the others.
I know they do something like this sort of every season, but the animation on this was really, really cool.
Oh, it absolutely was. It reminded me of the Germany fairy tales thing, because they did a full animation for that. Like, there is so much effort in this. It's kind of insane how much effort they actually went to do this 30-second gag at the start of the episode.
It's better than using Studio Ghibli AI.
Very true.
So, Hilda and Pedro,
well,
old.
Yeah, it's day 8 in Ratchathaburi, and Hilda and Pedro are the oldest 2 left after an intense first week. Hilda says she prepared by going running, but she can feel her quadriceps, and Pedro offers to give her an upper leg massage.
That wasn't an invitation, Pedro.
And they see a card floating over across the swimming pool from a child on a boat.
I love that Pedro's basically entire character at this point is slut.
I mean, it's very fitting for him to have been your first suspicion and your first draft.
Look, it's on brand, isn't it?
Well, that's what I mean, yeah. It's terribly on brand for your first suspicion that counts on a pool to be someone whose personality trait basically becomes slut.
Yeah.
I'm just glad he didn't bring out any oil when he was massaging Hilda's legs.
Hilda, I've got the choice between vegetable and olive. Which do you want?
Oh, look, a boat! Dear God.
If you're really good, I'll find you some extra crispy.
Have you scrolled to the top of your legs?
Don't be crude, Logan.
That's our job. And the card tells them that today is Loi Krathong. 5 of them will be rolling up their sleeves while 2 will be showing off their footwork. And Hilda says if it's dance, she really wants to dance, and they choose Sarah to join her. In the car on the way to their assignment, Nimrod tells his car that he still gets presents from St. Nicholas, and Alexei still does Easter egg hunts to appease his mum, who enjoys hiding them. The 5 non-dancers meet Gilles, and he tells them it's the day when people set boats afloat to send their worries away and ask for forgiveness. Whilst he's not sure if they need forgiveness, they will be setting a boat afloat by doing a dragon race. If they win the race, they will earn €4,000. 2 of them will be looking for reinforcements, while the other 3 try and earn them a head start. And they pick Alexei, Pedro, and Nimrod to go and earn the head start, while Michelle and Else recruit the rowers.
I was thinking when Nimrod said, yeah, I still get presents from St. Nicholas, but nobody else does. Does that mean, I wonder if Nimrod's logic was him thinking, I guess everyone must have been bad last Christmas.
Does this mean that if Nimrod is in the final 3, we do have to ask him if he still believes in Father Christmas?
Papa Christmas?
Papa Noel, isn't it?
Yeah, or by the end of this episode, it ends up being Papa ? No else.
No else? Oh, no.
Bindles, that was the pun I thought of for this episode title, and yes, it's being used.
I woke up early this morning for this.
You did. You woke up early for the phrase Papa No Else. You're welcome, Internet.
Does that mean next week's episode is the first No Else?
Yeah, technically it could be, actually. That's a good point.
As Papa Bear would say, I think you two may or may not need or Michael needs forgiveness after that pun.
Yeah, I'm afraid I probably do. It's all very fun doing Christmas puns when it's Easter week.
I don't think we can get a boat big enough for that.
So of the 8 rows in front of them, 4 are very experienced, while the other 4 have never seen a boat before. Unfortunately, those 8 only speak Thai, so they have only 20 minutes to get to a translation office to find out if they row. And the translation office seems to be a screen set up to do Google Translate across a footbridge.
It's pretty cool.
It is very
Yeah.
cool, but it's also blatantly Google Translate on a tablet.
Yeah. I mean, what else is it going to be?
Well, they're going across the river, so babblefish.
Yeah. Alexei, Pedro, and Nimrod have to keep the beat on the music in a giant dragon boat temple. They will play 3 rounds, and each round that they keep the beat, they will earn a lead for the boat of 20 meters. And Nimrod and Alexei play the first round and fail.
Then the 3 attempts with this, none of them are even really close.
No. But again, are they pandering to us, or one of us in particular, by making the last song by Willie Summers?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that joke is worn out.
You are wrong.
You know what else is worn out? Da-da-da-da-da.
Willie Summers' fans. But I was just thinking, I have learned just over the past 10 seasons of podcasting about this show, we've learned way too much about Flemish pop culture. I feel like it's almost getting to the point where my Flemish pop culture knowledge is surpassing my Canadian pop culture knowledge.
I'll be perfectly honest, nothing on the Willie Summers joke is ever going to top Gilles' response when we talked to him in 2021 of just being like, Logan, you realise he's so old and all his fans are so old, right? What are you doing with your life?
I believe his exact words were just little old ladies listen to Willie Summers.
I mean, if we get, any more Belgian culture, we're going to have to start calling him Papa Smurf.
How did we not call him Papa Smurf last year?
I think we have at one point.
In the hundreds of nicknames for Papa Bear last year, I don't think we called him Papa Smurf. It was one of the few we didn't call him.
Yeah, which is a shame because last season was a Smurfing good time.
It was.
Yeah, and at the finale, he would have told you to go Smurf yourself.
So Hilda and Sarah are delighted to know that they are taking part in a dance, in a great performance of the Thai con dance, and they will earn €1,000 each if they are not unmasked by a jury at the end. Pedro and Alexei fail the second round, so all hopes rest on Willie Summers, as they do in Logan's life. And unfortunately, they fail again, so no head starts. And Elsa and Michelle pick their 4 rowers and pick correctly for the first 3, but not the 4th one, as they go for girl power.
You know who I would think would know the beat of a Willie Summers song? 2 men in their 20s and Pedro.
Hilda would have absolutely smashed the Willie Summers round, I suspect.
She would have taken the other drumstick.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a very enthusiastic Hilda drum solo to Willie Summers.
As much as obviously we get wonderful images of Hilda learning the monkey dance, I think it was a missed opportunity for us to not see Hilda drum.
Yeah.
Be funny if she just starts screaming when Willie Summers plays.
Willie Summers, he's another one of my exes. So the race begins and they fall behind, but as Cox, Else can eliminate Rose from the other boats by blowing a horn. However, every time she does, it costs €1,000, and she blows twice, but it is the correct decision as they end up banking €2,000 of 4,000, and then all tip into the river.
I like how that twist to the challenge wasn't mentioned until after they got in the boats, as if production saw how the 2 boats were stacking up and thought, we got to make this somewhat competitive.
Yeah, we've got to give them some chance.
Yeah. Because they trail behind very quickly, and they barely win with a 8-6 advantage, which is crazy for rowing.
Yeah.
And they had 3 of the professional rowers.
Yeah, Else and Michelle almost picked perfectly for their recruits, and they still almost messed it up.
Yeah, Michelle talked Else out of the last perfect rower in the final seconds. And I like the one of my favorite mistranslations was, I know nothing, I'm from Barcelona.
Well, that was the Fawlty Towers reference.
Ah.
Bindles and I were trying to work out what the Fawlty Towers reference was because, again, I watched this when I was very not paying attention to all of the words yesterday. And yeah, that was the Fawlty Towers reference we were trying to think of.
Yeah.
I know nothing, I'm from Barcelona.
Or, my hair went crazy quickly, I do like rowing.
And Fawlty Towers is about the same age as Willie Summers now, so, people our age aren't likely to get it.
Yeah. So the rowers then head to the theatre and see Sarah and Hilda's new gold makeover. The jurors trying to spot Sarah and Hilda are the DJs from the Dragon Boat Temple. They know a lot about music, but not necessarily about dance.
They did surprisingly well at the dancing, considering we only really got one scene of the practice scene, and they were not good.
Especially Hilda. Hilda doing a cartwheel was like Creed Bratton from The Office.
Oh, old women falling over is always funny, but old women trying to do somersaults is another level of funny.
Yeah.
It's lethal. It's like, that's another page to the waiver.
Imagine Rianne trying to do that.
She would just go into a sitting down position.
I think we were expecting it to be more like the Apsara in terms of performance level, but actually it was they both did very well. Even Hilda did pretty well.
Hmm.
If Hilda didn't have the Mol's briefcase label on her, I think she may have had a chance of not getting exposed there.
Yeah.
Certainly not as the first one.
Did you notice the tag was different when they showed them before the performance?
I did not.
I did.
I was just wondering where the briefcase was going to come into play generally. I know I've said this in the past few weeks about the Mol's briefcase, but it's making the Mole be a lot more active. You cannot have a
Yeah.
passive Mole with a twist like the Mole briefcase, which I very much appreciate.
I mean, it's making them all be more active in terms of getting these sabotages into position, I guess. But making the challenge impossible like this, or almost impossible like the elevator game, I'm not sure is really satisfying, to be honest.
Yeah, it veers into nastiness when they
Yeah.
basically have a free pass to half the money of one of the challenges. But they did play it on the lower half of the challenge, I guess. So
Yeah, like I suspect the reason we probably didn't get as much of this challenge shown as we otherwise would have is because of the mole case. Because why waste 25 minutes showing something that has no chance of even mattering?
yeah,
It's a nice challenge. I think the mole case was more of a detriment this time.
yeah, I like the sabotage itself, but
Yeah.
it is a bit mean to instantly halve the money that they could have earned.
Do you think they would have unmasked Hilda regardless?
I don't think she would have been the first one because they were targeting the guy who they picked second first, and then they spotted Hilda's fake label and went for her as the guaranteed option. I think it probably would have been those two unmasked, but I think it would have been flipped had the label not been there.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed they used the Wilhelm scream effect when the boat capsized in the dragon boat race.
Of course, they did.
I'm glad that the one non-rower was able to not drown when they capsized.
At least they didn't use the Titanic music, because then Michael would have called this episode "My Heart Will Go On."
Unfortunately, I have already used "My Heart Will Go On" as a pun before when I did "My Heart Will Go Fons."
That's a shame. I mean, this episode is still a mucky Kong bonanza.
Obviously.
I think Papa Bear came up with the most true quote of this episode, where right before the performance began, he said, "My judgment isn't worth a dime."
Yeah, he's like, "That was great, but what do I know? I'm just a guy."
I'm just a Flemish man who knows nothing about Thai dance. I'm going to go sit in this corner and read the latest soccer scores.
Where do you think the Mole would have wanted to be in this split?
I mean, I think for the mole case, I think they probably wanted to be a dancer because it's easier for them to do that switch without the group there. But we don't know if it's another situation like the train carriage where the mole had a private opportunity to do it. Like we see them all looking at the things, but we only see them. I think we only ever see one at a time. So maybe that was another situation like that where they basically just came in one at a time and had a look at them and thinking, well, there's probably a clue here or something.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like maybe they were hinted to look at the costumes, because otherwise, why would you do that? Like, that seems. It seems like maybe somebody suggested there was something to do with the costumes, and then they looked at them. Because I don't feel like if you just come from the Dragon Challenge, your first instinct would be, oh, go and look at the outfit, see if there's any clues or anything on it.
I think unless you are the cocks in the boat, you can't really do much with the money in the Dragon Boat Challenge. So whilst it's worth a lot more money, I think it's way easier to sabotage the dance.
Well, I think they probably would have not needed the money if they got any of the drum sections done properly. But also, like, that challenge seemed very, very difficult. So, like,
yeah, it was.
I might have expected, a competent group to get maybe 1 out of 3, maybe 2. But, I don't think they were ever going to get all 3 anyway, even without a mole potentially being there. Yeah, I think really the only group we can probably rule out in the first challenge from doing anything is Else and Michelle. And, well, we know it's not Else now, so...
Yeah, the only way I can see a mole maybe sabotaging both is if they somehow sabotage the dragon boat, which they didn't do because it would have been way too obvious if they'd stopped rowing or whatever, or rowed out of sequence, is talking loudly in the audience.
Yeah.
And ending up leading the judges towards the correct people. Because they were trying to work out who their friends were in the crowd.
Yeah, I think with the dragon boat, you can probably mess up the rowing a little bit as well, because there's one sabotage in one of the Australian seasons where basically similar challenge, sort of rowing a boat together as a group, and the mole, when he's rowing, the paddle goes into the water sideways, so it's not really creating enough momentum for the boat to go forwards. I think that's a way to sabotage that without being too obvious about it. So, I don't think we can really say definitively the mole was actually rowing and not doing anything.
I think in a dragon boat, though, because you're in such close quarters, I think whoever was on the line with them would have spied it.
Yeah.
I think it's too dangerous as a mole to be obviously not rowing or obviously rowing badly in a dragon boat. Unless, of course, they were sat with one of the recruits, in which case they could get away with it. You just sit next to the one who's never been in a boat before. She doesn't know any better.
I mean, they did blow the horn twice, so there had to be some sort of sabotage for them to fall that far behind, even with a 2-person advantage for about 100 meters of the race.
Yeah.
And of course, if you mess up the drumming, that's 60 meters further behind as well before you even start.
Yeah.
The drummers looked very suspicious to me this week.
So, Hilda is indeed unmasked, but Sarah is not, for a total of €1,000 of 2,000 for the pot. It's also revealed that Hilda's label has the word fake in Thai, and we have a flashback to Vilvorda, with the mole asking,
"Did you manage to make the labels?"
"Yes, look, this is how it will look, and this is the variant."
"It all looks Greek to me."
"It's Thai. This says dancer, and this says fake. The only thing you'll need to do is pull off dancer and stick on fake."
"And if I'm with the rowers, I won't be able to switch it."
"We'll make sure everyone gets together beforehand. That's your moment."
I mean, if I had a nickel for every time, all I've had to do is pull off dancer.
And change it to fake. And in the evening, they do celebrate Loi Krathong, and as we've alluded to, Else calls Papa Bear Papa, and he buys her a balloon.
At least Else didn't start flying into the air because of the helium in the balloon.
My favourite thing is when she was doing her suspicions during this festival scene, the balloon was visible behind her. It was just kind of swaying in the wind behind her. It just really tickled me.
I like how Papa Bear giving everybody allowance money too.
Yeah.
You get 20 baht, you get 60 baht.
Yeah, here's 20 baht. If it's any more than that, negotiate.
Yeah. You're getting ripped off.
What do you think I am, made of money?
And in an effort to not get Fuzzy a bingo square, I am not going to tell you what date Loi Krathong was last year. Sorry, Fuzzy. It's not happening.
Yeah. So go look it up. We're not Google.
So they wake up on day 9 in Nontanaburi, and they're all melting at breakfast, and Michelle says when she sweats, she gets a sweat stash.
Oh, that is hot.
Bear in mind that Michelle is the same woman who started the season by saying that she didn't want kids until she saw her boyfriend hold a man's skull together.
Yeah, then she doesn't get turned on until she has a sweat stash.
Yeah, she finds love in such attractive situations.
I mean, it could be worse. Could be Pedro.
Yeah. Worn out quadriceps and he's there. Worn out quadriceps and sweat stashes. If either of these occur, call Pedro. Vote for Pedro.
And Alexi, Sarah, and Els get harassed by a water buffalo when trying to write their ball books. There is no need for them to put that scene in, but it really tickled me.
Just a classic case of A water buffalo eating my mole book. That's why I failed the quiz. Damn you, water buffalo.
And they then discuss what they would do if they won the money, which is a ridiculous scene in and of itself because Alexei says his dream trip would have been to Thailand anyway. Els says she wanted to use the money to go to space with a perfect knowledge of the budget of this show, and Sarah says she'd buy a yacht.
Suddenly, Bernard's wife needing a new kitchen doesn't seem so insane.
As soon as they had this scene, I thought Sarah was going home because of them revealing personal details about themselves. So one of them did go home. I just picked the wrong person in that group.
Yeah, I must admit I was quite confident at this point that Alexei was going home.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh yeah, I've had a trip to Thailand, I've got everything I wanted. It's like big neon sign, he's not staying anywhere. Unfortunately, I was wrong as well. And they are heading an hour down the road to Ayutthaya, as predicted.
Also known as the Sagat stage from Street Fighter 2.
Yeah. I know we said this last week, but Ayutthaya is such a cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And it certainly seemed like they basically just hired out the entirety of Ayutthaya for this challenge. It's just nuts that they basically kept every tourist away from this the day after a public holiday in Thailand.
Yeah, because because we've both been there, and yeah, it's definitely, it's not overflowing with people, but definitely enough tourists go there pretty much every day because it's considered the perfect day trip from Bangkok.
Yeah, it's basically Angkor Wat if you're not going to Cambodia. It's very much the same vibe. It's just really, really cool. Much like I've discussed my trips to Masada and the Dead Sea and Jerusalem and all that. Like, this was another one where I saw the excursion. I'm like, I know exactly what Ayutthaya is. I'm going there. I don't give a shit about how much money it costs. And it was another very, very busy day, but it was well worth it. They didn't, though, because they're bastards, let me ride an elephant. Changing my tune from last week.
I mean, to be fair, with how tall you are, the elephant probably would have ridden you.
Yeah, and he'll be like, how do you like it now? How do you like it now, human?
How do you like it now, motherfucker?
Yeah, huh? Dance, monkey, dance.
Don't you wish you were the Canadian who banged a horse?
You cut me off when I was about to say I'm pretty sure someone getting ridden by an elephant is in Logan's collection. Oh boy. It's called Logan Rides Again.
Oh, anyway, so Papa Bear needs 6 treasure hunters.
Yeah, he does.
Which is the most obvious. I need everybody but one person to do something. And whoever is that one definitely won't be in a high risk reward situation.
Oh, no.
So Pedro volunteers to sacrifice himself as he's had so many rewards so far this season already, and he is now awarded the title of Treasurer. He guards the treasure of the challenge, which is of rice selling, and heads to the treasure room. The others split into pairs to find treasure: Sarah and Els, Hilda and Alexei, and Michelle and Nimrod. Each pair will begin a round by wearing traditional Thai spiky helmets, and they have 5 minutes to get as many balloons in their section in the colours of the Thai flag, and can only collect the balloons by hooking the carabiners attached to the balloons. The others will determine the value of the balloons, beginning with Hilda and Alexei getting a zoom-in look on a city and have to stop the zoom with money counting down when they know what city it is. Whatever they stop on is the value of the balloons, assuming that Michelle and Nimrod in this case can identify it at that point too. They cannot for the first one, and they say Rome.
How did you go with the cities?
It's tough, this one.
Yeah, the aerial view really threw me off, and it's all places I've been to, except for, oh no, when they thought it was Berlin, it was actually Brussels. So, yeah, I had a tough time with the aerial view. I think the Barcelona one was the only one I was confident in. The others, the contestants always beat me to it, but I think it's because the way it shows on screen when we're watching it on our computers is completely different than being in front of that TV and probably seeing it on a bigger screen with more specific details.
Yeah, I have the disadvantage as well of I sit at this coffee table where I do the podcast from with my laptop in front of me. I do a remote display to put the episode on the big telly screen in front of me, and I do my notes as I'm doing it. So it's much further away from me than it probably is for you guys to actually look at the episodes. Probably hence why I missed the Fawlty Towers reference as well.
I got New York straight away because I sort of recognized Long Island of all places.
Oh yeah, New York. That's the other one I got.
Yeah, you know, famously the city of Egypt.
Nile, the Hudson, same thing.
It's totally a city. Poor Nimrod.
You know, the city of Egypt in the country of Africa.
What's this, a Horus reference?
Yeah, Nimrod is so lucky that A, we like him, and B, he's not an Amazing Grace, because we could easily do, and have in the past done, 10 minutes on people calling Africa a country.
Yeah, I got New York. I wouldn't have got Brussels.
No.
Not just because, you know, Belgium, but also because, like, when they were going on about, oh, we're going to zoom in on the most famous landmark, I probably, even if you told me it was Brussels, I would have expected the Atomium.
Yeah, the reason they didn't is because of the photography rules around the Atomium.
Yeah, like I know we have seen the Atomium on this show before, but like I think this is a slightly different situation than, you know, building up that live finale in Canary Islands.
Yeah, if you take a picture of the Atomium, technically you have to pay copyright money to the guy who built the Atomium, I think. So they were never going to pick the Atomium, which made the Brussels round 10 times harder, because nobody knows anything in Brussels apart from the Atomium and the Mannequin Piss.
Is the Mannequin Piss in Brussels, or is that Antwerp?
No, it's in
Brussels.
It's in Brussels.
Okay,
it's the only other famous thing in Brussels.
And I did laugh when I realised apparently the most famous building in Amsterdam is the train station. Like it's the place you go to get away from Amsterdam.
Well, they couldn't really zoom in on the Anne Frank house, could they?
They could have zoomed in on the Sheepfight Museum.
It's sort of considered bad taste to zoom in on Anne Frank house, I think. Yeah, Brussels was a difficult one because most of the non-Atomium landmarks are not going to be visible from the air. So you have like the Mannequin Piss, which is very small in real life anyway. You have something like the Tintin murals in the metro. You're never going to be able to zoom in on that because it's zooming in on a metro station. So it's like, yeah, there's this gate that's reasonably well known that no one's actually ever heard of outside of Brussels. Let's just use that.
I love that they thought that was the Brandenburg Gate, even though it's the wrong shape and the wrong colour.
Yeah, and it actually looks more like Marble Arch in London than anywhere in Brussels.
Yeah, like I was watching it and I'm squinting and I'm squinting and I'm squinting and I'm like, Budapest? Like I could tell it was in Europe. Like that was as close as I could get. But, you know, I did not do great at this.
In hindsight, they probably should not have used Brussels as a round because nobody can identify that rando gate.
Although what you didn't see is the third round, they were panning to us and their three locations were London, Sydney and Toronto.
Of course. I mean, our three favourite cities in the world.
they zooming in on Vernon and it's just like one random field of horse in it.
They zoom in on the Chateau Okanagan. It's like, I recognise that from $1 Million Secret.
Yeah.
They zoom in on Lake Okanagan and just see Ogopogo sticking his head up.
Yeah, waving at the aerial view cam, the satellite. Or they could at least show the rail trail, and then everyone in Belgium knows it's like, oh yeah, the biking trail.
We know that one.
Yeah, it's the rail trail.
What cities would you have expected to see?
Probably, well, knowing this show, it would have been the capitals of countries that they've been to over the last 10 years, probably. They probably would have snuck a Bangkok in there, let's be honest.
Yeah.
For round 3, yeah.
Yeah, I would have fully expected them to do just the capitals of all the countries that they've been to as a sort of wink to the fact that it's 10 years.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe they would have made a joke about Ayutthaya and Angkor Wat sort of being a little bit similar to the Forbidden City and done Beijing, but I think that might have fallen into the same sort of issues as doing the Atomium.
Yeah. I'm sort of surprised they didn't put London in there, to be honest.
Yeah. Maybe that was round 3.
Yeah, I think there's a few potentials for London as much as it's a shithole of a city. There are a few landmarks they could have done as an easy zoom in. Maybe something like Schönebrunn in Vienna, I would have expected. Because you could have had the zoom in over all the mountains and stuff. It actually would have been a bit of a different zoom in for them to do.
I'm amazed it took them so long to get Paris.
Yeah, because Paris was probably the easiest of the lot that we saw of the 6. Maybe even something like Tokyo with Shibuya.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Tokyo would have probably been on the short list too.
Given we know how much they love Olympic cities, like, yeah, Tokyo, maybe LA with the Hollywood sign or something. I sort of expected them to go a little more obvious than some of the ones they did.
Yeah. Like, I get why they did Brussels and Amsterdam, because, like, I think you can reasonably expect a Belgian person to recognise those two.
Yeah, and Amsterdam also has the benefit of all the canals, so it's basically just going to be that or Venice. I'm not sure Brussels is as easy to identify as certain cities in the world, shall we say, to put it politely.
Yeah. I can't believe we've got like 10 minutes of talking out of the boring part of this challenge.
I know. It's hilarious. So in their hurry to return with a balloon each, Else loses her white balloon and they time out with 2 balloons in the box. And Jill tells them that if no one pops the golden balloon by him in 10 seconds, they will continue playing another round, but if someone does, their pair will go to the treasure room to face Pedro. No one pops despite Hilda's threats to get her big spiky stick out.
And Michelle and Nimrod really suck at identifying cities.
Yes, they do. So it's very good that they end up being the next balloon collectors and far away from the city identifying portion of this challenge.
Yeah, that's why they both Nimrod really keeping a close eye on him now, because a couple times Michelle would throw out a completely wrong guess and Nimrod would say, "Yeah, that's probably right," and just let Michelle take the heat on the incorrect city guesses.
So they end the second round with 700 in the box and another golden balloon opportunity. Michelle dives for the balloon, but Else gets there first, sending her and Sarah to the treasure room.
I've got to be honest, being in a Thai temple trying to catch a balloon with a helmet with a stick on it is not how I pictured Nimrod being on all fours this season.
Not just a Thai temple as well. It's one of the most famous sites in all of Thailand. And they hire it out to dot balloons around and make them try and play hook-a-duck. This fucking show.
I know we were saying last week this season has been like a little bit light on this fucking show moments, but this fucking show, like, this is probably the best thing of the season so far.
Yeah, this is the only show in the world that can get away with hiring out the entirety of Ayutthaya and playing hook-a-duck with balloons there.
And what the hell is wrong with Nimrod with saying, "Oh, Michelle didn't go first, you went first, Else"?
He's just trying to shame her at that point.
Yeah, even though Hilda completely called out Michelle and Nimrod for saying, "You two have your feet way too far apart. You're clearly in an attack position towards the balloon. Can you put your feet closer together before the countdown?"
Hilda turned to them and said, "You are not in the attack zone."
Yeah. You cannot make contact with the balloon.
I'm kind of amazed we didn't get an injury with, 4 or 5 sharp, pointy sticks going towards each other all at once there.
Yeah, it's a small miracle. So in the treasure room sits Pedro and 3 boxes. To earn the €1,000 that they have banked, they must take Pedro's exemption away. If they open the right box, he loses the exemption and they earn the €1,000 and a past frog each. They can only open 2 of the 3 boxes, though.
They can't open all 3? They can only open 2?
No, they only completed 2 rounds, Logan.
Yeah, if they'd got to the 3rd round, they could have opened all 3, but unfortunately, no. Pedro claims the exemption's in the left-hand box, and they open that one, finding absolutely nothing. He then claims that he forgot, and it's in the right-hand one. They open the right-hand chest, and it's also empty, winning Pedro an exemption and earning them nothing of €6,000 for the challenge, €3,000 of 12,000 for the episode, and 9,450 of 50,900 for the season so far.
Pedro was such a little shit there.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, Pedro gets the banner this week for one of his very smug smiles when they've opened the 2nd box.
Why did they keep believing him?
The question we ask ourselves all the time.
I'll also say that I've estimated that it was about €2,000 per round that they could have earned had they, actually succeeded on the cities.
That seems fair enough.
So even though Gilles says, "Oh yeah, you could have earned over 45,000 euros by this point," I reckon it's 50,900.
Okay.
Where do you think the mole wanted to be in that challenge?
Balloons.
I know loads of people suspect Pedro, but I don't think he was in the position the mole wants to be in here because
No.
he has no control. He can fuck with them, yes, and he can, if he's the mole, have a lot of fun messing with them to their faces. But ultimately, he has no control over whether they earn any money in this challenge, which is not where a mole would want to be necessarily.
Yeah, like I think if you're in the other group, you can get the questions wrong, you can pop balloons, you can be really bad at just collecting the balloons and not bring many back at all. And then, even after all of that, if you get to the end round, which isn't a guarantee, you've basically got a 1 in 3 chance of not winning any money.
Yeah.
Like, even if you sort of use the first round as cover to try and gain some money and look like a genuine candidate, there's not a guarantee it's going to be won. So I think just about any position except Pedro's would have been good in this challenge for a mole.
Yeah, because it's suspicious that if he was the mole, he actively volunteers to be in the treasurer position, which isn't something a mole would do if they know that they're not going to get any control, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, unless the mole case had a smaller chest with like a hidden compartment in it that they could hide the exemption in.
Yeah. But again, if he is the mole, he'd already played his mole case by that point.
Yeah.
A mole, if it was Pedro and there was a false bottom in the briefcase, then it's a stupid place to play it if he plays it at the dance challenge rather than there. So, it is time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home except for the mole who can never go home. And as we've just discussed, Pedro has an exemption for this test. Sarah says Pedro keeps surprising her. He's always in the right place and she can't read him. Hilda says Pedro knows the most about geography and he was the one who got sent away. It's a good mole action. Pedro had Else in his sights since day one. She always goes along with bad decisions. Michelle says Nimrod is a clever guy, but thinking Egypt as a country was not his finest hour. Alexei expected Nimrod and Michelle to do better at the identifying the cities, but they brought in a lot of potential money. Nimrod says it's strange that they didn't pick the guy who says he loves rowing boats, and Else expected Alexei to be better with rhythm given he has a musical background, but he just seems too sincere to be the mole. Gilles tells them that they're halfway through the trip, 9 days of adventures and surprises, but not a lot of money has been brought in. It could have been over 45,000 euros so far. The pot's a little bit on the lean side. Maybe they gave the mole too big a victory with the suitcase. On the next day, they are heading to the Gulf of Thailand. Pedro's booked his ticket, but one person won't be joining them.
It's interesting that 9,450 is the lowest Belgian pot at this point. But I think it's like the highest, maybe second highest Vidum pot since Angela left. Because I think Czechia was around 10,000 at this point, right before a pot drain. But I think other than that, this would be maybe the highest Vidum pot ever after 4 episodes. At least after they got out of the, it's normal people, so we're going to give them loads of money sort of situation. And then they went into the, I guess,
cheap
not quite budget, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because they're on course to get in a very similar pot to what they normally get of about 20k plus or minus 5. I could definitely see them not doing any pot drain challenge in the back half of the season and then just going, yeah, you get about 22k, that's fine.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
But as I've said with the mole briefcase before, though, I think that the mole is definitely doing other things that we're not seeing with the briefcase, and the briefcase is more of a smokescreen. So they're looking for the briefcase stuff, but the mole's actually doing other things and just distracting them with the briefcase stuff. Is what I think is probably happening. Alexei, Hilda, and Nimrod all get green screens before Else is the 4th person sent packing.
Bummer.
Yeah.
She says she was in a tunnel and gambled. She's done so much and experienced so much. She was fantastic and had so much personality. And she's described as disarming, sweet and cute, but tough as nails. And she says her highlight was the helicopter.
Tough as nails?
Yeah. Phil Kogan has just woken up, finally.
Yeah. Funny thing is, they sold the tough of nails concept to Belgium.
I forgot
Yeah.
about that, actually. Yeah, they did.
And then the show died.
Yeah. So next time, there's skydiving, shooting, coconuts. Hilda hits a car horn with a bum, and there's a ticking paint bomb before Hilda and Nimrod do some karaoke.
Karaoke, you mean?
Oh, yes. I have also seen the theory that it may not be the contestants who are skydiving, because episode 5 is usually the family visit.
Oh.
I feel like we could make a drinking game out of how many times they've had to sing Anna on this show.
Anna? So on the pool, after a great start to the season, Bindles does lose his first team member, dropping him down to just Pedro and
Aw.
Nimrod. Logan still has Sarah and Alexi, and I have Michelle and Hilda.
I mean, I know I've lost my first member, but it's still a nice threesome.
It's your ideal situation to be left with just Pedro and Nimrod, isn't it?
If either of those two ever hear this, these are just jokes, I swear.
They are jokes in the same way that we are joking about Logan having sex with a horse. The suspect list question this week is, just to annoy the Pedro truthers a little bit, was the mole the treasurer? Yes or no?
You're really forcing everybody's hand who suspects Pedro.
Yeah, well, my ideal situation would have been one of the three guys who did the Metrodome challenge to go, so I could have done, where was the mole in the first challenge? Were they doing the drums? Were they picking out the rowers? Or were they dancing? But unfortunately, Els got in the way of that, and I didn't want to do a 3-2-1 split for a question, so I just thought I'll do a 5-1 split instead.
Yeah.
And everyone suspects Pedro at the moment anyway, so, put your money where your mouth is, guys.
You could have done was the mole in the treasure room.
Well, that still would have been a 4-2 split.
Yeah.
I wanted really to make it either a 2-2-2 split or a 3-3 split. Flanders suspicions last week were Pedro with 31%, Michelle on 16, Els and Sarah on 14, Nimrod on 10, Alexi on 9, and Hilda on 6. And you'll also notice that I am deliberately skipping over first suspicions for one very good reason, because we have a little confession sorted.
Oh.
For the past 4 weeks, Bindles and I have been gung-ho on Els being the mole. Secretly.
Yeah.
We wanted to reveal this to you at the finale, that we had spotted so many clues about Els in the first 3 episodes. Literally ridiculous amounts of clues.
Well, none of that panned out.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah, it was. In hindsight, unfortunately, that was dumb. Because, I mean, it started with something we actually alluded to in episode 1, in that the cover of Dreams by the Cranberries was not Mandarin, it was actually Cantonese, and Els was born in Hong Kong. The floor sign in the first episode, the Thai character that was on that was Chan, which is Els's surname. Channel 13 on the television, the Zodiac Challenge, was Rat, which is Els's Zodiac sign. That sort of thing. We got properly Michael Monst.
At least it happened. Oh, that would have been so great if she had made it to the finale.
Yeah.
Because I had her I have not suspected Els in a while.
No.
Or have I ever even come close to suspecting her?
No, you're not great at suspecting people, are you?
No, that's why I'm surprised that you guys got it so wrong. They wrong.
I think Bindles knew in his heart of hearts that if Els had made it to the final 5, I would have stolen her on the pool, and he couldn't have done anything about it.
Yep.
So, unfortunately for him, he doesn't get an easy win there now.
No. And that means Fuzzy doesn't get her easy bingo square.
Indeed, it doesn't. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to stop you winning bingo for 2 reasons. One is Fuzzy doesn't get a bingo square, and 2 is, we can't have you winning. But on first suspicions, 12 people. Fly 101, Alice, Jack, Bram, Mateus, Femke, Yoreen, Christina, Reed, Fuzzy, the Flemish Publican, unfortunately me, all had Els as their first suspicion, while only one person, Logan fucking Saunders, had her in 10th.
What a bunch of dum-dums.
Yes. You were the only person who even had her in the bottom 2, could I point out, Saunders?
Yeah, I didn't suspect her at all.
No. It is another bad week as well for Alice. With a score of 37, she still drags her heels on first suspicions, while Sandra leaps into the lead with a current perfect score of 21.
Good for her.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, utterly mortified yesterday when Els got a red screen, and I'm like, oh my god, Saunders is going to be so smug when I tell him, fuck's sake. Because we were even making plans that we were going to do a secret post-credit scene for episode 7, where it's like, yeah, we actually suspect Els. We're not going to tell Saunders he's going to get surprised next week.
Oh, you two really got ahead of yourselves.
Yeah, we really did.
And we know you don't listen to this podcast anyway, so
Yeah.
we know you wouldn't have heard it.
Yep. And Fuzzy has been worried for the past day or so since she watched the episode that I was going to take the piss out of her for losing her first suspicion. But unfortunately, so did I, Fuzzy.
At least I picked Pedro in week 1.
Yes, you did. I think you had Els in like 5th from memory.
Yeah, something like that.
Which was really irritating because I was hoping you'd go down on this sinking ship with me as well.
No.
So, final 2 questions. Who do we suspect who's going home?
My suspect list is Nimrod, then Michelle, then Pedro, then Alexei, then Hilda, then Sarah, then I had Els and dead last. And I think we're going to say goodbye, so long, farewell to Sarah.
I'm going to go Pedro, Nimrod, Hilda, Alexei, Michelle, Sarah. Who's going home? I'll say Alexei. Why not?
And my suspects are officially, I don't even fucking know anymore. But what I've put on suspect list is Pedro, Hilda, Sarah, Michelle, Alexei, and Nimrod. And I think Alexei's going home as well. I'm going to keep riding it until he actually fucking does.
I'm sorry, you had me at riding Nimrod.
I feel like on my suspicions, it's very much divided in the middle now. I don't really think it's Alexei and Nimrod especially. But Michelle's kind of dipped into that with the being a bit too successful with the rowers bit.
Yeah.
Whereas Pedro, Hilda, and Sarah, I could absolutely see being the mole. I think it would be interesting if Hilda is the mole, whether they introduce the mole briefcase to go, you're a bit old, do you want a bit of help? Do you want a comfy chair in the briefcase, Hilda?
Do you want a cup of tea while you put the floor sign on?
You open Hilda's mole briefcase and it's just full of like knitting, tea bags,
enzyme pills,
a good novel. I love you, Hilda. I hope we get to meet.
Although we should end this podcast because Hilda has to watch her stories.
Yeah, good point. On that bombshell, thank you for listening to our Mol België Season 13 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for the newest mole in Thailand. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform that isn't TikTok, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us in contact at rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to the Legion of Subtitlers. We'll see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Usually when I blow a horn, the boat doesn't go down.